What's up guys, my name's Brandon and welcome back to Apple Weekly. And where do I start? These past 2 weeks have been the most exciting weeks of the year in the world of Apple. So there's been a lot happening here on the channel, but we still have more to discuss. So in this episode, we're going to talk about the unexpected iOS 16.0.2 update and the latest iOS 16.1 beta, along with a malicious mail bug that I discovered has actually been patched mid-video. And then after the software talk, we're going to discuss Apple's master plan with the iPhone 14 Pro lineup, Facebook being sued yet again over app privacy, and more. And as always, if you guys want to stay updated with all things Apple, make sure to click that subscribe button down below so you don't miss next week's episode. All right, so let's start with iOS 16.0.2. And this was an unexpected release because Apple acknowledged the major iPhone 14 Pro camera vibration bug earlier in the week, and they said that an update would come next week. And then they proceeded to release said update just 2 days later, which I'm not complaining about, but it was very unexpected. So just to recap, this update does in fact fix the 14 Pro and Pro Max camera vibration issue in third-party applications. You do not need to update those third-party applications like Snapchat or Instagram. This software update will fix that issue. Now, we did also get a fix for the copy and paste bug, and that was very annoying because we would get the permissions prompt every single time we went to copy and paste from one app to another. So that has been fixed. However, some people got this confused with the third-party applications integration with this, the automatic clipboard detection. So that is a whole nother thing. Apple fixed it, everywhere else, but some third-party applications do have automatic clipboard detection, and you're going to get a prompt like that, but that has nothing to do with the software. That's all to do with that third-party application. So those were the two big bug fixes, and there were also a few other ones here as well that you can learn more about if you watch my 16.0.2 video. Now, as far as any updates on the software after using it for a few days, I've seen a lot of people saying that you're having better battery life on 16.0.2, and your mileage may vary, but for me, so far, it's about the same as 16.0 and 16.0.1 if you have a 14 series. So I would not expect better battery life, although some people are saying it, so you might, but me personally, I am not noticing a difference, and same with performance. I mean, performance feels a little bit better just because of some of the bugs being resolved, but especially the one in the app library where it would just cover up the dynamic island. So that has been fixed. But aside from that, really no big jump in performance here with this update. That's likely to come in 16.1, if anything. And then speaking of iOS 16.1 beta 2, we did get some changes in this update. So as you can see up top, I now have a lower battery level than I did in my What's New video. So you can start to see the new battery percentage in the status bar, the new look there, working a little bit better. Now, I did also want to show you some slight tweaks to the animations as well. So you can see up there when I'm charging, we can see that the animation and the look of the charging icon up there in the status bar is slightly different as well because we do have the bigger font size. So to me, that looks a little bit crammed. I mean, the battery percentage font looks a little bit too large. So I would not be surprised if they reduce that font down by a point. And then if we go into low power mode, you can see what the animation looks like up there. You can see what the battery percentage looks like right up there with the yellow and black text. So sometimes it looks a little bit weird. If you're on a black background, sometimes it can be kind of hard to read, but I'm sure Apple will continue tweaking that. And I do like this UI design just much better than just having the text and have the battery icon stay full. And if you're on an iPhone 14 Pro series, you will notice that the app library search bar has been moved down. So it no longer gets overlapped by the dynamic island. So before it was way up there and it was really buggy looking. So that has been fixed as well with this update. Also on the lock screen, when you click on the music right here, the album artwork, you will notice that the clock actually changes colors as well. So in the background, you can see the dominant colors of the album artwork, of course, make up the color around on the lock screen, but now the time also changes. The font there on the clock also changes color. So you can see it was white right here. I tap on this and it turns to a blue shade. And if you're a WhatsApp user, the crashing has been fixed for WhatsApp. I guess a lot of people had issues when you sent a photo message or a video message, it would just crash the application in beta 1, but that has been addressed here in beta 2. So all of your WhatsApp conversations should be smooth now after beta 2. And then also found in the code by 9to5Mac is is a reference to a new way to create a group of speakers in the Home application. So details are kind of sparse for now, but there might be a new way to group multiple HomePods and AirPlay 2 speakers together by the time 16.1 launches. And that will be just in time for Matter as well. So if you go into your settings, go to General, you will see we do have the Matter accessories toggle right there, the section right there for Matter accessories. That is also new in 16.1. And then I've also had people asking me about the 16.0.2 bugs, if those are also patched in iOS 16.1 beta 2. And the copy and paste bug is fixed in beta 2 along with the GPS bug, so you can use your Maps applications properly. However, the Pro and Pro Max, the 14 Pro and Pro Max camera vibration bug appears to still be present here in beta 2 of 16.1. I've had a couple of users reach out to me and tell me that it has not been fixed. So I assume that will be fixed in beta 3 now that 16.0.2 has launched with a fix for that. All right, so now let's talk about some bugs. And the first one is one that is pretty interesting. So this only works on iOS 16 and it works on every version of iOS 16. And it is a bug that will crash your mail application and not allow you to open it back up. Even if you delete it and reinstall it, you will not be able to open up the mail application due to this bug, and it's all done with a maliciously crafted subject line. So if you go to this website right here, you could test this out for yourself if you enter in your email. So this was reported on by VPN Tracker, and they're calling it Mailjack, and they say it allows anyone to hijack your inbox. So what's cool about this site is they do have a little section down here where you can test the crash for yourself if you enter in your email. Now I'm not going to link this because I don't want you guys getting spammed. They may, use this for promotional purposes, but I am going to put in my email so I can show you guys how it works. All right, so it appears that Apple has actually patched this. So I tried this yesterday and it worked perfectly fine. I was able to crash my mail application constantly, but now the next day it's not working. So it appears that Apple must have done something server side to, rewrite the email or something, but now I'm not receiving the email that is supposed to crash my mail application. So a very interesting bug and even a more interesting fix by Apple within just a day via a server-side fix. All right, so now that we know that bug has been fixed, we do also have a couple of other bugs I wanted to talk about related to CarPlay. So I've had a lot of complaints. A lot of people have been complaining to me about CarPlay and issues with the mic sensitivity. So people are saying that the person on the other end of the phone call is not being able to hear them very well. So I've had a lot of people tell me that the mic sensitivity is extremely low in iOS 16 across all versions of iOS 16. Along with that, I am also hearing reports of audio levels being off with music. So we might see some fixes for CarPlay coming very soon. At least I hope so. Now, as far as performance overall, like I mentioned earlier, 16.0.2 did not feel any different to me than 16.0 did. But to my surprise, iOS 16.1 beta 2 here actually feels more stable and more polished than the latest public iOS release, which is 16.0.2. I think that this beta here feels more stable and just more smooth. I don't know how to explain it. And I'm not the only one that feels this way. Multiple people have told me as well that 16.1 feels better than 16 and 16.0.2. So that's a pleasant surprise. Now, don't go out and update to a beta on your main device. That's never a good idea. At least wait till beta 3 if you're going to do it, which is not advised. Wait till beta 3 at the very earliest. But if you're on your main device, just stick with the public releases if you cannot handle bugs and you're going to complain about bugs and bad battery life. And speaking of battery life, a lot of people are reporting that battery life is worse on these early 16.1 betas. And for me so far, it doesn't really seem that bad. I mean, it does feel a little bit worse than 16.0 and 16.0.2, but there's really not a major difference. And by the way, I am running the iOS 16.1 beta 2 update on my main device. So I am using that on my device, but that's because I can handle the bugs. I'm doing that to test everything out. But, I think the battery life is a little bit worse than it was on 16.0.2. But as I've said in the past few videos, don't expect, really great battery life until a later iOS 16 build. Usually the battery life doesn't get on par with the previous version like iOS 15 until like the 0.4 or 0.5 updates. So it's going to take a while until your battery life is like right on par with iOS 15. All right, so now let's talk about what to expect next from Apple. So next up is going to be iOS 16.1 beta 3. And that should come out next week, sometime from the 26th through the 28th. So sometime early next week is when I would expect to see 16.1 beta 3 for both developers and public beta testers. Now, as far as the final release for 16.1, that should come sometime in mid to late October. I keep saying that, but it really just depends on when Apple is going to have the Apple event. So we are expecting an October Apple event, and that could line up with the release of 16.1. And the reason that could line up is because iPadOS 16 is going to launch with 16.1. So I would assume, this is not for sure yet, but I would think that Apple would release 16.1, iOS 16.1 with iPadOS 16, aka 16.1, because that's the initial build for it to the public. So they're going to be releasing that, and also macOS Ventura sometime in October. And like I said, I would assume that will be after an Apple event. I've also had some people asking me if we're going to see a 16.0.3, if that's possible, before a 16.1, the final release. And sure, it's possible, but I find that, pretty unlikely. I mean, unless Apple finds a major bug, like the camera vibration bug, something that makes a lot of headlines, unless they find something like that, I doubt it. I think 16.1 will be the next version to get released, but we'll see. Apple is extremely unpredictable, as we saw just this week. Now let's move on to the latest Apple news. And the first thing I want to talk about is that iOS 16 is being adopted at a higher rate than iOS 15, and that's likely to do with this really awesome lock screen here. But just under 2 weeks after the launch of iOS 16, it has been installed on an estimated 25.5% of all iPhones. And for reference, at the same time last year, iOS 15 was installed on just 19%. And for a deeper look into this, iOS 15 is now installed on an estimated 65% of devices, while the other 9.4% of devices are running an older version than iOS 15. And keep in mind, these numbers are not official. Apple doesn't publicly release these numbers, but it is a decently accurate rate there, because the numbers are based on page views on websites and applications that use the Mixpanel Analytics SDK, which a lot of the biggest websites use. So I'd say it's pretty accurate. All right, now let's talk about early iPhone 14 sales, because it seems that Apple's master plan is panning out exactly the way that Tim Apple drew it up. According to Ming-Chi Kuo, the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max are selling even hotter than Apple expected, so they're ramping up the shipment expectations for the second half of this year. In his most recent report, Kuo says that, quote, after the production line switch, iPhone 14 Pro models will account for 60 to 65% of the total iPhone 14 shipments in the second half of 22, with the 14 Pro Max being the most popular model of the bunch at around 30 to 35% of total iPhone 14 shipments. Now, what's going to be interesting is how the iPhone 14 Plus that's getting released in a couple of weeks does. I have a feeling that some people already forgot about that phone. You're like, what? The 14 Plus? I forgot that was even a thing. So yeah, I think a lot of people forgot it was coming, but it will be interesting to see, how that does in terms of sales, especially compared to the regular 14, which is off to a slow start. I'm also curious to see how it's going to do compared to the mini phones that Apple killed, like the 12 mini and the 13 mini. And that leads me to wonder, is Apple going to kill the Plus model if it underperforms like the mini did? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. And while we're on this subject, Apple is set to break their own record for the average sales price twice in the coming months. So according to Counterpoint Research, the global average selling price, or ASP, is going to rise to a record $892 in September and $944 in December, both of which will be records for Apple, and that is mainly thanks to what we just talked about, more users going pro. And then let's talk about a story that's going to make us all smile. Facebook, aka Meta, is being sued yet again for skirting Apple's privacy rules. So remember about a month ago when I talked about the researcher who found out that there was a JavaScript code in Facebook and Instagram that allowed them to track pretty much anything you do on the website, including typing in your passwords? Well, yeah, and the key to avoiding that was just using your actual Safari browser, not the in-app browser. That's where the whole issue lied. But nonetheless, 2 Facebook users have just taken this info to court in a class action complaint in San Francisco. So there's really not much more to this story. I just wanted to tell you that Meta is being sued yet again, and that should bring a smile to your face, and we'll see where that case goes. But really, the real kick in the groin to Meta is the $10 billion in ad revenue that they're going to lose out on in 2022 due to Apple's changes to privacy in iOS 14 and iOS 15. So anyways, guys, there you have it. That is the latest batch of Apple news from this past week, along with some updates on the latest iOS 16 changes and apparently bug fixes, because that mail bug has apparently been fixed. I'm still refreshing here, trying to see if it comes through, and it appears to be fixed for me. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Also make sure to subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you guys soon.